Welcome to the 99, where we are focused on brewing a better competitive commander. I am your host, Patrick Marlatt, and today we are taking a look at a Vilis Broker of Blood deck. Now, I'm sure you're wondering why I'm holding up Kambal Council of Allocation, and that's because I have so much wanted to build a mono black deck. I really did. And unfortunately, when Vilis came out, it had all the hallmarks of a great card, however, not exactly in the command zone. Why don't we begin by talking about Vilis Broker of Blood and what makes him so special before discussing Kambal and why I chose him as our commander. Vilis Broker of Blood, it's 5 generic and 3 black, so it's a lot to cast, but we're not looking to cast him. He's a legendary creature demon, he has flying, ooh, he's an 8/8, ooh. But more importantly, he has 2 great abilities. The first one, not so much, we're not really going to use it, but that last one, So you pay a black, pay 2 life, and target creature gets -1/-1 until the end of turn. Well, that's not so bad, I guess, for removing dorks or your opponent's Dark Confidant, but again, we're more concerned about that last one. Whenever you lose life, draw that many cards. So I know what you're thinking. How do I abuse this? How do I draw my whole deck, or at least 39 cards out of my deck, and net a win right then and there? That's immediately what I thought. So when M20 announced Vilis, I spent hours working on a strategy for this guy, and I realized it wasn't going to happen with him in the command zone. And you might have already guessed it. A lot of folks have already figured it out, solved the puzzle here. Vilis is really meant to be in the 99 for 2 reasons. 1 being Reanimate, 2 being Phyrexian Delver. Specifically because those cards work sequentially. So when you reanimate something, it brings it back from your graveyard to the field, period, and then it will go ahead and reduce your life total by the casting cost of said card. So when you bring back Vilis, he'll be on the field, he'll see you lose life from the reanimate effect, and you'll draw 8 cards. The same goes for Phyrexian Delver. Now with that knowledge in mind, I'm going to go ahead and read off Kambal Council of Allocation, our commander for this list. And I'll go ahead and encourage you now to visit the link down in the description, Kambal's pack, Vilis Broker of Blood. That is the tapped out link for this particular deck. So if you want to build this one, or just follow along today, I would encourage you to go there. But if you don't know what Kambal does, he's an excellent commander for this list, and particularly for Vilis in general. Now, why is this? He's 1 generic, 1 white, and 1 black. Legendary creature, human, advisor, 2/3 body, so pretty big butt. And we have a ability on this guy that says whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, that player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So we're working with a reanimator target where life as a resource is important. So if spending life is important, then the inverse must be true. We must want a lot of life. And Kambal nets us a ton of life on our opponent's turns, and even on our own turn. As whenever they play a non-creature spell, that is our 3 opponents, we're going to net 2 life. And through testing and practical play, I've gained a lot of life just having Kambal on the battlefield. It's also a great removal target, because any infinite strategy that our opponents might have that requires them to storm off, casting a lot of spells, well, guess what? They can't do that when Kambal's out. This is one of the first times I've constructed a list where the commander didn't play a larger part of the core strategy. However, it does supplement it well. Now, how does this list win? Once we get Vilis on the field, and sometimes you don't even need to reanimate him to get the ball rolling, you might just have the cards you need. But the cards we're looking for are Bitter Ordeal and Blood Artist, and we'll get to how you win with those in just a few, but these are important to bear in mind when we talk about the deck. So I'll start with Bitter Ordeal. It's a sorcery for 2 generic, 1 black, and it allows you to search target player's library for a card and remove that card from the game. Then that player shuffles his or her library. It also has a little effect called Gravestorm. Now, you might not be familiar with this card. It's important to note this is how this card wins you games. When you play this spell, copy it for each permanent put into a graveyard this turn. You may choose new targets for the copies. And our other win condition for this list is Blood Artist. Now, we all know this one, but I'm going to go over it again. It's 1 generic, 1 black for a creature vampire, 0/1. So a little flaky, but that's all right. We only need him on the field for so long. Whenever Blood Artist or another creature dies, it doesn't need to be your creature, any creatures, so there's some value there. Target player loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life. Well, oh well, how are we going to net infinite death triggers in Orzhov? Well, we're fortunate enough that this part of the color pie, this little slice, has one of the coolest combos in Magic, and you've likely already seen it. This combo relies on using an enchantment aura that allows you to reanimate a creature. So any one of three. We have Necromancy, that's the most expensive, Animate Dead, as well as Dance of the Dead. And then you have a target called Leonin Relic Warder. Now, I'm working in a somewhat reverse order from the primer, but if you want to follow along with what I'm going to discuss here, it's under the header Kambal's Pact. So this is the meat and potatoes of the list. So we're going to go ahead and bury Leonin Relic Warder, and we'll do so with either Entomb and or Discard Effect and or Buried Alive. Doesn't matter, however you get him there, you want him in your graveyard. Then you're going to reanimate him with either Animate Dead, Dance of the Dead, or Necromancy. So when that spell comes into effect, you target Leonin Relic Warder, and Leonin Relic Warder comes back, targeting the enchantment, creating an infinite loop of ETB and LTB death cycles, because Leonin Relic Warder is going to exile that enchantment attached to it, and when it does so, it becomes buried, putting the enchantment back on the field, targeting Leonin Relic Warder. So if our Blood Artist is out, and or we have Bitter Ordeal in our hand, we win the game pretty much on the spot. There's really no way of stopping an infinite number of Bitter Ordeals. You can, if you're an opponent, stop the Blood Artist, but we're hopefully going to have ourselves set up. I mean, we are also playing white and Orzhov, so we have effects that silence our opponents. So the win condition for this list is very simple. It relies on a 2-card combo, and luckily there are 3 effects and 1 Leonin Relic Warder we can use, so it's pretty easy to set up. However, it does seem a little fragile. Now, if you're worried about this being too squishy for your particular meta, you can add in another loop, which I'll go over now. You'll notice on the sideboard I have set up a few cards that actually work in tandem with each other to create an infinite death cycle as well. And, you know, we don't have a sideboard in Commander, but you'll notice those cards are Demon Male Hoberk, Fiend Hunter, and Karmic Guide. Those are the important ones to pay attention to. When Karmic Guide enters the battlefield, it's going to work in much the same way as our enchantments do, targeting Fiend Hunter. Fiend Hunter is going to come back, target the Karmic Guide, exiling it. And if we have a sack outlet, I prefer Demon Male Hoberk in this list because it's an equipment, and Orzhov is very good at finding equipments. We can go ahead and sack the Fiend Hunter, bringing back Karmic Guide, creating that same death loop cycle we did with the Leonin Relic Warder and our enchantments. Now, personally, I didn't find a need to incorporate that loop in the list, and I tried it out with the deck, but all I found is that it detracted from plan A, which is Leonin Relic Warder and our enchantments. So even if the Relic Warder gets exiled from our graveyard or exiled off the field, we have one of the best recovery spells in Magic, that being Pull from Eternity. It's an instant speed card with 1 white as its cost, and you put target face-up card that's removed from the game into its owner's graveyard. So it's essentially Entomb from exile. Now, from all my playtesting, Leonin Relic Warder was fortunately never exiled, but there is this card for that scenario. And if you're playing against a food chain player who doesn't really care about exiling your grave, well, guess what? You can take his exiled card, that Sphinx, or that Scrooge, the Scourge, and just put it into his graveyard instead. So he can't go off with food chain. That feels really good too. So there's plenty of things you can do with Pull from Eternity, but it's mainly there to help us get our combo line out in case someone wants to throw a wrench into our plan. Now again, it's not essential that this list even reanimates Vilis to go off. However, it does help a whole lot in giving us the protection we need, as well as the mana sufficient to get all of these spells off on one turn. So I'm going to go over beginning the blood ritual. This is how I like to call it when I'm playing this list. It helps me to sort of paint a story when I'm playing a deck and or describing a deck to someone so that there's a better understanding of how the deck is supposed to flow. So essentially we want to reanimate Vilis in a normal play line, and we can do that by burying him with Entomb, Buried Alive obviously, or effects like Putrid Imp or Collective Brutality, things that will put him into our graveyard. Now, the core reanimation spells we want to use are Reanimate and Phyrexian Delver. It's not altogether too important how you get them on the battlefield. However, those are the 2 best spells because they're going to allow you to draw off of the spell resolving. Now, what's great about Black and what's great about this list is we get to leverage in a whole new way all of the spells that say pay life. I mean cards like Blood Celebrant, Lashright, Plunge into Darkness, Garza's Assassin, and Toxic Deluge. Now, I'm going to go over these cards individually now. You'll notice that Lashright isn't currently in my list. I found it was a redundancy we didn't quite need. However, it can slip into the list just as easily. But I'll touch on that one first and then move on to the others. So Lashright is 4 CMC, artifact equipment. It's a living weapon, so it comes in with a germ creature token attached to it. This is actually very useful if you need a creature to sacrifice for culling the weak and or just need a body to die to diabolic intent. But equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each swamp you control, and you can pay 2 black or 2 Phyrexian mana to equip this to a different creature, or the same creature. What's nice here is that we are paying life, and this is gradual life loss, but this will allow us, when Vilis is out, to draw cards. This will draw 4 cards every time we go to equip it, and obviously we want to cheat the mana cost in doing so. The next card that I love in this list, the setup feels high, but it's not that difficult because you need at least 2 black to get the ball rolling. But once you get it rolling, this is a mana ability. Mana abilities don't use the stack. So if Vilis is out and you have Blood Celebrant out and you have at least 1 black mana, you can go ahead and pay a swamp, 1 life with this creature. He's a creature cleric, by the way, 1/1. All irrelevant. He should be on the screen. When you do those 2 things and activate the ability, you add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. You're going to say black. You're going to say black until you've drawn all the cards you need to effectively win you the game. So Blood Celebrant is a great way to gradually draw through your list. And again, because you're using a mana ability to do so, you're just paying life to do, gain the draw effect. Now, mind you, Vilis's effect is a triggered ability, so if someone has a response, they can go ahead and respond to you while the trigger's on the stack. But bear in mind, you can keep paying life and paying that 1 black to continually put draw triggers on the stack. So you would just work your draws over top of their, countermeasures, whatever they might be. So do bear that in mind. You're not stumped when someone says path to exile on Vilis. No, just keep going. Keep going. Laugh at the path to exile, let it resolve whenever you want, but you're going to draw through your deck this way. Now, under the header Exsanguination, this is a very sudden amount of life loss, and it's the most risky way to go about this, but we have, again, Plunge into Darkness, Garza's Assassin, and Toxic Deluge. Now, Plunge into Darkness is 1 generic, 1 black, and it's a modal spell. You get to choose one of 2 things at instant speed. Sacrifice any number of creatures, then gain 3 life for each creature sacrificed this way. Obviously, this is actually really good to use early game if you need the creature sacrificed for more life to get more off of your Vilis later. If you feel like your life total's low, people have been hidden on you. The thing you really want to spend this mana on is the second mode, which is or pay X life, then look at the top X cards of your library, put one of those cards into your hand, and remove the rest from the game. So if you have Pull from Eternity in your hand, you can go ahead and pay however much life you want to get 1 card out of your list. Say your Relic Warder's in the grave, Pull from Eternity is in your hand, and if anything gets exiled from this that you needed, you can just bury it. Or let's just say Lean and Relic Warder is in this pile of cards you're looking at. We're going to go pay 20 life, grab our Reanimate enchantment, and exile Lean and Relic Warder. Now we can go ahead and Pull from Eternity, putting Lean and Relic Warder into our grave, and reanimate him with our enchantment. Again, going off with that combo. Plunge into Darkness is great. It's very risky. It's really risky in any list that uses it, but it's fantastic here because of how it works with Vilis. Because mind you, if Vilis is out when this happens, you're netting a draw off of each life loss. So if we pulled 20, we're also drawing 20 cards. So don't feel so bad that you're exiling a ton of cards because you're going to get a lot back in the aftermath. Now, Garza's Assassin is an interesting one. This is probably the only list you'll ever see him used in, and I personally love this card. That is why I had to incorporate it. I would say it's a glorified flex spot. However, it works very good here. So Garza's Assassin is 3 black, creature human assassin. It's a 2/2 body. He has a self-sacrificing ability that allows him to destroy target non-black creature. It's pretty decent, actually, to have on a creature that's a reanimate target with Unearth, or however you want to use him. He's actually very valuable. But in our graveyard, he's the only creature in the game of Magic with this ability. Recover. You pay half your life, round it up. That's a lot of life. So what happens when you recover something? It's a triggered ability, but when another creature is put into your graveyard from play, you may pay half your life rounded up. If you do, return this card from your graveyard to your hand. Otherwise, remove this card from the game. So we can do this by, again, let's just use Lashright as an example. I can switch the equipment from Lashright to a different creature, making my 0/0 germ hit the graveyard. This will automatically trigger Garza's Assassin. And again, we wouldn't need to do this if Lashright was out, but if Vilis was also out on the same turn, we can bring Garza's Assassin back to our hand and draw however much half of our life total is at that point. Of course, we can also do things like Diabolic Intent, one of our creatures, to net a, some form of value card, likely an enchantment that reanimates things. But when we do so, Garza's Assassin, again, is going to draw us a mess of cards. It's a beautiful thing. He's great as a buried alive target, let me tell you. And you'll actually enjoy him in this list, I hope. Again, this is somewhat of a flex spot, but black is hurting for mass life loss that doesn't require X in the mana cost of the card as well. This is one of the better ways to lose a lot of life and not feel bad about it, while also getting a lot of value off of it. Last but not least, we have one of the best rats in the game, Toxic Deluge. So if you don't know what this card does, of course you do, but if you don't, it's 2 generic, 1 black. It's sorcery speed. As an additional cost to cast Toxic Deluge, you have to pay X life. For shame. All creatures get -X until the end of turn. Now, personally, I don't usually go more than 7 because I kind of want to keep Vilis out. One of the neat tricks in this list is using Sacrifice on Vilis to net 8 mana. So Sacrifice is on the screen right now. It's 1 black, you sacrifice a creature and get mana worth its CMC. So you're going to get 8 mana, and that's usually going to plummet you to the place you need to be with your mana to do the combo line. And all of our win condition, you'll notice it only requires black mana to do, so Sacrifice is the perfect spell for this. So we're usually just using Toxic Deluge for value. It's a great board wipe, leaving Vilis alive. Or if we really want to go deep, we can say 20 like we would with Plunge into Darkness and just draw 20 cards. Again, Vilis is going to be dead. If we really do need him after this, we can reanimate him again, but it's very much unlikely. So as you can see, this list is reliant on a lot of excellent cards, which is great news. Again, things like Toxic Deluge, you should just stick into your black deck anyways, but it's that much better when Vilis is out. So we get to abuse cards that we don't generally abuse, like Garza's Assassin, things of that nature. And just mind you, we have some of the best tutors in Magic as well with the black of our color pie. And things like Imperial Seal, again, when Vilis is out, makes us lose life. Well, guess what? We can Imp Seal whatever we want to the top of our deck and then draw it right after the fact. It's fantastic. There's so much synergy with this reanimate target. It's easily one of my favorite reanimate targets in recent Magic. I actually enjoy it a lot more than Razaketh. I feel like Razaketh has a lot more moving parts than Vilis actually does. But you can whiff with Vilis just as easily. Maybe not just as easily. Razaketh is a little bit more pinpoint accurate with the fact that you're tutoring. However, drawing a bunch of cards is fun. And I'm sure a lot of you also want to do that. So with this list, you're going to get to do that. And you're going to get to draw gobs of cards should Kambal net you a lot of life. But as I mentioned a second ago, we have some of the best tutors in Magic. And the cards that are really going to help us throughout this list are not only our tutors, but those sacrifice effects, those discard effects, and those pay life effects outside of the ones I already mentioned. So sacrificing creatures is only really vital if we're working on a buried alive loop with Garza's Assassin in our graveyard. But the things that you should be looking out for that are going to net you the sacrifice are Phyrexian Tower, Cabal Therapy, Collective Brutality, Diabolic Intent, Overeager Apprentice, who's an all-star in this list, Culling the Weak, and Plunge into Darkness. Now, of course, Sacrifice itself will do that, but that's generally only reliable on a combo turn sacrificing Vilis, by which point we will probably ignore the Garza's Assassin trigger. He'll be exiled. It's not the end of the world. However, if you need mass card draw and you've buried alive, that's the best way to do it. So make sure you get that Garza's Assassin trigger. Now, the discard effects in this list are just as essential as Entomb in any other Reanimator list. I think discard is one of those effects that is mistaken for being a downside to a list, where, as in Golgari and Orzhov, it's very important. So our discard utilities are Kambal Therapy, and this also works on us too, not just our opponents, so you can just target yourself, naming whatever you needed to dump. It's also another sacrifice trigger, as I mentioned earlier, so double value there. Collective Brutality, when you escalate this card, again, it should be on the screen, it's fantastic because it lets you drop cards and get value. So it's exactly what we want for the list. Again, Overeager Apprentice, he self-sacrifices, he discards, he nets us 3 black for our Necropotence. I don't know, he seems really good. And Putrid Imp. Putrid Imp is an essential. He's so good for this list. He's not just for your Gitrogs. Putrid Imp is fantastic here. Anytime you have a 1 CMC creature that's letting you discard value in a Reanimator list, you want to incorporate him. And it's not like folks are going to hard counter this creature unless they see an imminent danger. So my thing is playing him out early, generally safe. If he gets removed, fine, we can unearth him. I'd even use an enchantment to bring him back. Just being able to have discard on deck with a creature like this that's so immediately playable is fantastic. Now, obviously, paying life in this list is the most important effect. It's what's going to allow us to do all those crazy things when Vilis is out, get all those draw triggers on the stack. And here are the cards that allow us to do so, and I might be repeating a few, but bear with me. We have Grim Tutor, Imperial Seal, Night's Whisper, Sign in Blood, Toxic Deluge, Blood Celebrant, Garza's Assassin, Street Wraith, Anguished Unmaking, Plunge into Darkness, and Vampiric Tutor. Now, things like Sign in Blood, Street Wraith, Night's Whisper, it's funny how effective those cards are by themselves, but when Vilis is out, you're netting so much more draw. Like Sign in Blood, I get to draw 4 cards for 2 mana. It's a beautiful thing, and you want to be doing that when Vilis is out. Again, it's just a buffer in case you're close to whiffing, or failing on a turn, I should say. I feel like someone commented they didn't understand what I meant by whiffing. If you go on that combo turn and you happen to draw 20 cards and none of them look effective, well, you should be looking at all those things that allow you to pay any amount of life, because it's going to let you dig that much deeper, because it is a list of 99 cards, so you might miss some of those core cards while you're digging. And all of these are going to let you dig even deeper if Vilis is out. Now, I'm not going to go over all the tutors today and how special they are, nor any sort of play line discussion. We'll do so in our part 2 video on this list. I'm going to give you a game demo on this to show you how it should work. A couple hands of 7, of course, as well as a demonstration of a win, hopefully. It's not a particularly fast list. It shouldn't work that way. You should be, hopefully, if you play your cards right, holding your opponents down while you're building up your board state to get to a condition where you can easily throw Vilis down, draw through the deck, and win. And again, we have things like Ranger Captain of Eos, Silence, Orm's Chant to target and just mass target players to not do anything while we go off. So set up your board state, play slow, hold everyone down, win with Vilis in a very simple loop with Leonin Relic Warder and an Animate Dead. I'm happy to say I've played this deck a lot and I've tested it a whole bunch to get it to this point, and I'm very happy with how far it's come. However, it's always growing. Of course, if you guys have any ideas for this list, feel free to mention them on the Tapped Out page. I would love to hear your thoughts. And also, what are you doing with Vilis? If you're not using him as your commander, who did you find to be the right commander for a Vilis list? What is your pact with Vilis, the Broker of Blood? I'd love to find out. To me, I found Kambal was the best option, and of course I'd love to be proven wrong, but Orzhov is a really good clean color to use for this strategy. It uses a very reliable 2-piece combo that works perfectly with Bitter Ordeal, one of my favorite, just I say kill spell, but end game spell. And I found this list just very exciting to play. So obviously, if you watch our set review that Justin and I did, we were talking about showcasing a Vilis list on the show, and of course this is the one I made. This is the one I want to play for you guys, so expect that very soon. If not these next few Brew Wars, then very soon after that. But before you all go, I've been asked since the show started, do you have a Twitter? Do you have an Instagram? How about a Discord? Well, guess what? If you go in the description down below, you'll notice that we have all 3 of those social media forums. So if you want to talk to me about this list, the best place to go to would be the Discord, or obviously in the comments section down below if you have any questions as to how it works. It's fairly self-explanatory, but getting there can be difficult if the list is new to you. I highly encourage you just goldfish it, but if you want to talk about this list, any other list, join us over on Discord, Twitter, or Instagram. But that is it for our part 1 video on Vilis, Broker of Blood. Kambal's packed with the devil. If you want to see this deck play out, stay tuned for part 2 where I discuss the list, of course, demo a few hands, as well as discuss any includes, excludes, and whether this list is competitive enough or not. And I actually demoed this list with a new group, and I felt like a fool tripping over myself, just not immediately seeing the play lines, but after I've played it a bunch, as I've played it a bunch to this point, once you know the play lines, it's actually very simple to play, and I cannot wait to share this list with you guys then. But until that point, happy brewing, babies.